Hello and welcome to Bobgrad, where today we are going to be showing off a reactor built in IndustrialCraft 2, 1710. I know that's a bit outdated, but there aren't many resources that I've found regarding this particular setup. I'm not alone. Say hi, Draco.
Hello.
He's going to be taking care of the camera and giving me a hand with making sure that I keep all this at a level that most people can understand.
I'm the dumbifier.
Yeah. We're going to be looking at two different versions of this. The first one I actually found in an experimental tutorial, and I have to say it is not good. That's what is right behind us here. Now, this is pretty much a nuclear reactor, fully built, so it has 6 containment chambers with this pressure vessel built out the outside. And if you click this box right here, you can then see the inside, how we're using 4-quad uranium, whole bunch of other components to keep this thing cool. The way this reactor differs from the normal IC2 nuclear reactor is you're actually cooling this thing. All right, you're using coolant to cool it, in addition to all these other components. You can think of it this way: these components move the heat to the coolant and heat up the coolant.
I've got one question. Is
Yeah.
where the quad fuel rods and the component heat vents and all that particular in where they're supposed to go, or can they go anywhere?
It can't go just anywhere. You'll find most of the time that it's all very symmetrical. Basically what you have is the component heat vents cooling down the other objects in here, and it's a whole science.
So there is a pattern to it.
There is a pattern to it, and I would be a liar if I said I understood it completely. I tend to steal the designs for inside the reactor, but this one works well. I don't even remember where I got this from, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would give credit to it. I did this weeks ago.
So if you are going to do this, just pause the video now, and then you'll be able to see what's what.
Pretty much.
I'll hover over all the different items now. Just so
you don't need to. You just need to look at the pictures. They're all pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Right.
So the main thing to keep in mind is that you're not putting out EU with this reactor. You're putting out heat units, and the heat units are stored in the hot coolant.
Right.
All right.
So the hot coolant's on the right-hand side, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Okay. And then the cold coolant is on the left.
Yeah.
So blue, cold, red, hot.
Right.
If we come to the back, actually, we can just come right here. If you look at the top.
Hold on.
All right. So if I pull off some of these wires, this block right here, right next to the reactor, it's called a liquid heat exchanger.
Yep.
All right. If you go in there, you'll see that it's full of hot coolant, and it's filled with these conductors and stuff. What happens with this block is the hot coolant is pushed from the reactor into this block.
Right.
It then is cooled by this block, and because it has a fluid ejector upgrade, it also pushes it back into the reactor as cold coolant.
So it's recycling it, basically.
Basically. If I remove this block, you will see that there is a reactor fluid port there. And because it has a fluid ejector upgrade, it pushes the hot fluid out, so I don't have to pump it out. And it also accepts it back in. Right. So that's an input-output at the same time type block.
Okay.
All right. And there's 2 of these. There's one on the left, and there's another one on the right there.
So over this side.
No.
Oh.
if I were to remove this block over here, you'll see that there's two of these fluid ports.
Right,
all right.
Okay.
Now I will also just set this up here and here. Just a quick thing about these blocks. The whole this in the center, you have this sort of coil.
Mm-hmm.
Those coils are where the heat is going to be pushed.
Right.
So if you look now at the top here, because the top and the bottom here are the exact same setup. So that center block, the steam generator, is accepting the heat and creating steam.
Right.
All right. So steam generator.
Yep.
Now, here's the really cool thing. Because you have two blocks producing heat at the same time, we have the ability to create something called superheated steam.
Right.
Okay. If you come back over here to the steam generator, you'll see that the steam, when it reaches 221 bar.
Right, okay.
That's a very particular number because that is the pressure that superheated steam is created at.
Right, okay.
So it's holding in all of its steam until it gets to that point, and then it will release.
Right, okay. And so it's basically a pressure, the pressure bar. So
exactly, it's
like a trip switch type thing. Would you say?
Basically,
yeah.
And at the bottom, you'll see that it's also it's inputting water. It's allowing water in at 1 millibucket at a time per tick. And you can change this around, especially when you're first configuring it. You need water to get in here quickly. You can put it at 1 bucket even,
right? Okay.
A tick or a second. If this runs out of water, it will explode.
Yeah.
That's been a problem with this reactor, along with the whole. Yeah, it's just been an issue.
Yeah, there was an issue, wasn't there?
Yeah. Let's talk about the superheated steam. It goes into this kinetic steam generator. Now, if you look in here, you will see that there's a steam turbine that has to be in there. Otherwise, it's not going to produce any sort of power or any sort of. It's not going to do anything.
Right.
In other words. It also has a fluid ejector upgrade so that it's pushing what's left. So this is superheated steam going in here.
Yep.
It's still going to have normal steam.
Right.
So it goes down a grade. Steam then goes into the kinetic steam generator over here.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That
is then pushed out over to the condenser.
Right.
Where I have 4 heat vents.
Yeah.
And also a fluid ejector.
Right.
And then the water goes through these fluid regulators all the way back to the steam generator.
Right.
All right. Now, I was telling you about the kinetic steam generators. Yeah. They don't actually produce the EU. You can think of it this way. They produce, they take the steam and they rotate.
Yeah.
And it, KU, I think it's kinetic units.
Yeah.
Is what it stands for. Those kinetic units, or whatever it's called, is then pushed into the kinetic generator, which is on the outside over here.
Yep.
And that actually produces the EU, which is what we want.
Yes.
For every single kinetic steam generator that's getting superheated steam, we're getting 100 EU per tick.
Mm. That's not bad.
For every one getting normal steam, we're getting 50.
Mm.
So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So, as you said, it's a closed system with the coolant.
Yep.
So hot coolant coming into the generation, cold current coolant going back in.
Yep.
And the water is also a closed system because it's going the top route as steam, bottom route back as water.
Yep.
Really not bad. The fluid regulator. There is just one thing I want to show with that. You see how the top has this circle?
Yeah. Well, the
that
square,
means that it's circlish, squarish thing.
Yep.
That indicates that the water will be exiting through that particular block, particular side.
So basically, it starts here, or in this area where your head is, works its way along the top, back down the bottom, then back round.
Correct.
In a anti-clockwise fashion.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
All right. Now, a couple other things. If we look in the generators,
yep.
You'll see that we also have the fluid ejector upgrade and so on. This is for 2 reasons, although I'm not sure about how accurate this is. The fluid ejector upgrade might be necessary to push the steam to the next block.
Right.
I find that a little hard to believe, though.
Right, okay.
The other issue, this kinetic steam generator could start developing, could start pulling water.
Right, okay.
With this ejector upgrade, we're also pushing the water down to the fluid regulators.
Yeah. Right, okay.
I understood it.
Yes, just about.
The fluid regulators and the condenser. By the way, the condenser takes steam and distilled water.
Sorry, say again?
The condenser takes the steam, any leftover steam, and makes it back into distilled water.
Okay, so you're using distilled water on like normal water?
Yes, that's a big thing. That's a big, big thing. If you look over here at the steam generator, here in the center, you'll see a blue bar on the right side called calcification.
Yep.
If you were to use regular water,
you'll get
this calcification would
calcium buildup, basically.
Exactly. And
similar
once it gets to a certain percentage, it fails.
So similar to if you're using a washing machine without Calgon, basically, or whatever.
More or less, yes.
Yeah, right. There you go.
It eventually says, nah, fuck you, and yes, that is a shout out to the Aussie man. And yes, it will stop working.
Right, okay.
So it's important, distilled water.
Right. So tip 1, distilled water, good thing.
Yes. Let's just take a look over here. Right. If you see the kinetic generator here, you'll see that you're looking at a black circle.
Yeah.
That means that that is going towards the outside. If I were to break this block, I was going to set it down. Over here on the kinetic steam generator, you'll see that there's like an inner circle.
Yep.
You can think of it that inner circle is turning.
Right.
And if you come over here and look at this side of this block, it also has one of those inner circles. Those inner circles need to be touching.
Right. So, tip 2, have a wrench handy.
Yes.
Is it any particular wrench, or?
Yes, the IC2 wrench.
Can I just borrow that for a second?
You can also use the powered one. I just can't be bothered to make it. I don't know. Yes, I go through a lot of those bronze wrenches, but enough to make.
Yeah. And unlike normal wrenches, this one actually has durability, doesn't it? Looks like.
Yes, it does. Which means I think I've gone through about 10 of these already. Yes, I could switch to the powered wrench, I just can't be bothered.
It's more resources.
Yeah, but at this point in the game, it's not a problem. So I'm actually going to go over these next parts more or less in the other reactor. Right. But I do have a computer program here to make sure that thing doesn't overheat. Right. This reactor did overheat, and it exploded, and this entire base was leveled.
Yeah, the only bit that was left was a bit of the upstairs room. There is a big reactor behind this wall which got half taken out. The floor under here went down about another, what, 14 blocks?
I think so, yes.
So it was a big diameter of a circle.
It was a crater.
Yeah, it was quite spectacular.
Yeah, epic fail.
Yeah.
The problem was the balance between the coolant and the liquid heat exchangers. The other problem is the coolant. Not the coolant, the distilled water. At some point, I started running out in each of these bays here, and the steam generators started to explode.
And that's not a good thing.
So basically, the balance between distilled water and coolant and all these components was way out of whack.
Right.
So we redid this. Well, I redid this. And I didn't just use IC2 stuff and ComputerCraft and Nuclear Control. I also started using Ender.io. What else did we use? Thaumcraft. I already said ComputerCraft.
Yeah.
Thermal expansion.
Yeah. So you've used a variety of mods to get this.
I've used a crap load of mods. Let's go over there and let's just take a look at this.
Yep. So this was test 1 basically for him.
I call that Mark 1. It also was not my own design. This is the Mark II. This is all warded off with Thaumcraft.
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Alright.
Yeah, so if you come over here, you'll see that the inside looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't change the way the reactor itself was configured.
Right.
The other thing I have here,
The top one.
the top one pushes into the reactor, the bottom one takes out.
Yeah.
It's pushing in full quad uranium cells, and it takes out the spent ones.
Right.
Alright. It's using, now this area is chunk loaded. We're using about 4 to 8 quad rods every 24 hours.
Is that Minecraft 24 hours or real life 24 hours?
Real life 24 hours.
So that's actually really efficient then.
It's pretty efficient, yeah. A lot more because of ore processing. Now that I have that automated, we're using a lot more energy. So,
and other projects as well.
Yeah. In here, we're accepting, with RF tools, a wireless redstone signal.
Yep.
And we're putting that to whatever block this is.
Reactor.
Redstone port.
Yeah.
And that'll actually turn on and off the reactor.
Right. And look, so you got the energy pumping into a tesseract.
The hot coolant is being pushed into a tesseract.
All right.
And on this side, the cold coolant is being pushed into the reactor.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So here's the main difference. Come out here, and we have angel rings.
Yeah.
You'll see we have 3 different tanks. This is because I wanted to have a central pool for all of the cold coolant,
Yep.
the hot coolant, and the distilled water.
Right.
Okay? Because I wanted to keep everything in balance.
And at least like this, you can actually see the levels of them as well, can't you?
Exactly. I can keep a very central eye on everything.
Yeah.
So every single one of these tesseracts is a different channel. So I have a one pushing the coolant to the reservoir.
Right.
And then this bottom one is just coolant to wherever coolant needs to go.
Right. And then same with these ones.
Too. Right?
Right.
So very important. If we look behind you, we will see basically the same setup that we saw down in the basement.
Right.
If you look down here, though, I'll go over to the other side. We can see that we're taking the hot coolant from the tesseract. Now, this is coming from the reservoir tank for hot coolant, and it is being pushed to the 4 liquid heat exchangers here on the bottom level.
Yep.
This exact setup is mirrored at the top of this tower. Okay?
Right. Yep. Now,
as I said, these blocks require the distilled water. So this next tesseract is going to take care of the water.
Yeah.
And that's distilled. Yeah. Darth water didn't have a particular good ring to it. So yeah. So yeah. The water's coming out, and this is actually continuously pushing through. Okay, that means that if I was to turn off these fluid conduits up here, the kinetic steam generators would start filling up with water.
Right.
So I'm pulling out at the same time as I'm pushing in.
Yeah.
It also helps that I have the fluid ejector upgrades. Right. But otherwise, it's still working the same way. I have the steam generators creating the superheated steam. Superheated steam is being pushed to the first kinetic steam generator, which is putting steam to the second one, which is then going into the condenser.
Right.
All right. And over here, we still have the kinetic generators just like we did before.
Right.
All right. Now, in my first proof of concept, I actually had the condensers hooked up to the fluid conduit.
Right.
It crashed the server.
Oh, yes, it did, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And it took me forever to figure out what the problem was. For some reason, the condenser did not play well with the fluid conduit. So what I did was I changed it up so that it would go into fluid regulators.
Right.
Okay. The fluid regulators are set up so that it's going to this tesseract back here.
Which one?
Right. This one right here in the center.
Right. Okay. Yep.
All right. And in this case, because this is where the top and the bottom meet, I'm using these 4 blocks here, the 2 condensers and the 2 fluid regulators for both the top and the bottom.
Right. Okay.
All right. So this bottom condenser is only working for the bottom half. This one, the top condenser, is working for the top. But the 2 fluid regulators, or technically 4 fluid regulators back here, are still pushing into the same tesseract.
Right. Okay.
All right. And as I said, the top is just a mirror image of the bottom. Okay, maybe the pipes are slightly differently configured because of space, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
And as you also see, I add the ME applied energistics insertion, export buses, set up with auto crafting, so that I never run out of the steam turbines.
Right. Okay.
All right. One last piece of advice. The fluid regulators and the condensers require power.
Right. Okay.
All right. Very important. That's why up here we have an MFE just waiting.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So that then creates the issue of how do we keep this stable?
Yeah.
We have the primary protection, which is the warded glass and all the blocks being warded off.
Yep.
But there's a couple things we want to make sure of. We want to make sure that we don't waste uranium. So we want to shut off with this when this top level MFSU is full.
Right.
We also want to shut off when there's some sort of problem with the warded with the reactor over it.
Yeah.
All right.
So how do we go about that?
Well, I am a programmer, so I'm using advanced computer to control all this.
Right.
So let's talk about these different circuits here before we even look at the code.
Yep.
Right here, I have a switch, which I can use to turn that reactor on and off whenever I want.
Right.
All right. Right now, I have it turned off.
See, this bit I get.
Yeah.
Simple switch is all I need.
Simple switch. Simple switch. But yeah, if I turn that on, it'll use the Project Red alloy wire.
Yeah.
And it will tell the controller, hey, I want the reactor to be on.
Right.
It's not going to do that now because the computer is not, the program is running.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you come up here to this MFSU and you just redstone behavior switch,
sorry,
you'll see that
you broke up a bit there. Say again.
Okay. If you hover your mouse over the redstone symbol, you'll see that it's going to emit a redstone signal if it's full.
Right. Okay.
All we're going to do is we're going to track that down here to this redstone transmitter from RF tools.
Right.
All right. That's then going to send the signal over here.
Right.
Which is also going into the controller.
Right.
Okay. And the last, well, not the last bit, but the next bit. This bit is important. We want to make sure that that thing never overheats.
Mm-hmm.
So we can use something called a remote thermal monitor to ensure that we get a redstone signal if that ever gets over a specific heat threshold.
Right.
So if you open up the user interface for the thermal monitor,
yep,
you'll see that I have it set to 10.
Yep.
That translates to about 3% heat in the reactor.
Right, okay.
So as soon as that reactor hits 3%, it's throwing a redstone signal.
Right, okay.
But there's a gotcha.
Mm.
This thing has to be powered.
So with the power that you're making, it can power this as well.
Exactly. But here's the problem though.
Mm.
If this thing does not get power, that reactor could be hot as hell, but we're not going to get the redstone signal.
Right.
Right. So we have to do two things here. And this is why this switch, this logic circuit here is a little more complex. Firstly, we want the opposite signal from the thermal monitor.
Right.
So that's why I have something called an invert cell. What it is doing is it is turning a negative redstone signal into a positive one. So redstone signal off is being turned into redstone signal on.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I also have this MFE over here.
Yep.
If you open that up and hover over the redstone behavior switch, you will see that it is emitting if it has power.
Or if it is partly filled, yeah.
Well, yeah, as long as it has some power, it will be throwing out a signal.
Right.
This AND circuit right here, it is saying that both of these have to be on in order to emit a redstone signal.
Right. Okay.
All right. Now, let's think of another scenario. I'm first building this thing.
Yeah.
This MFE has absolutely no power in it.
Yeah.
I still need a way to get this
it.
signal to think it's okay to run.
Right.
That's what this switch is for. This switch is kind of like a manual override to tell this logic circuit it can run.
Right. So basically, it's a jump starter, basically.
Basically. And then as soon as this gets a little bit of power, I can turn it off and I can let it run.
Yeah.
All right. One last piece of this puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you come up here, we want to be able to monitor the coolant.
Yeah.
And if at any point in time this coolant tank starts to empty out, in other words, we're getting too much hot coolant, we need the reactor to take a break. We have this circuit here. Now, this is a BuildCraft basic gate, and if we click on that, we'll see that if the containers of the tank is less than 25%, we're going to throw a red pipe signal.
Right, okay. And that's what this is going down to the PC.
This goes down to
the
computer, PC, whatever. And we have another gate here that says if the red pipe signal is on, throw a redstone signal.
Right. Okay.
Then the rest of the magic happens in the program.
Right.
Now we're gonna post this code in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description.
Right. You ready for this, guys? There you go.
This isn't that difficult, to be totally honest. So we have 6 sides that we need to keep track of. But I'll be honest with you, I don't want to remember what side is left, right, front, back, or top. I just want to know what the hell it does.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I saved that to the top variable list. We have a main switch which is on the computer's left side. We have an emergency switch off, which is the
right side.
The heat.
Yeah.
So that's the right. We have a power off for if the power ever gets full.
Right.
We have a signal. We have a side which is taking care of the tank, of the coolant tank.
Yep.
And of course, we're throwing a redstone signal, which is controlling the reactor.
Right.
So we have, 5 sides that we're dealing with.
Yep.
All I did was I created a function because I don't want to worry about what side. I don't want to have to deal with I don't want to have to deal with the redstone API really. All I want to do is say, is ask, is the coolant empty?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a function for it. Same thing for enableReactor.
Right. Yep.
DisableReactor. It's all very straightforward.
Right.
The emergency shutdown, which I could rename because of the heat.
Yeah.
I should have said is overheating.
Right.
But again, that's just seeing if the
if it actually works.
I'm just seeing if it's overheated or not, and if this side is ever false, then I know shut it down. It's overheating. Yep. Is enabled. Is that main switch on or off?
Yep.
And then I actually come into a few actual functions that do something.
Right.
So, emergency shutdown. What we're doing is we're just printing out the reactor's too hot, and we are shutting the reactor down.
Yeah.
We're pausing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
300 seconds. And then we're informing on the console, we can restart now, or at least we're going to try to restart now.
Right.
All right, we're continuing the cycle.
Yeah.
Now, ensure off. All what we're doing, we're making sure that that we need to do something.
Yeah.
So we want to turn off the redstone signal.
Mm-hmm.
Only makes sense if the redstone signal is on.
Yep.
The opposite is true if we're starting the reactor.
Yep.
We have another function for it, is the power full.
Yep.
This is probably the coolest function. This is the one that I've spent the most time on. And namely, my goal was let the reactor sleep for just enough time for it to process that coolant.
Yeah.
You know, the backup that we have. So I started off with 2 minutes, and that was too long. The reactor or the generators shut down.
Right. Okay.
And I played around until I found 70.
Right. Okay.
And 70 seems to be a good round number because at 70 seconds, we've processed enough hot coolant that we can start making it again, that the reactor runs for a while.
Right.
All right. When I start the reactor, I'm pretending that I'm doing some sort of a complex startup routine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just printing out that we're starting it, telling the computer to do nothing for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then just be like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
This is me just having fun. And this is actually the workhorse of the entire process.
Right.
As long as the game is running, so while true, always.
Yeah.
We're checking if the reactor is enabled. So if that means switches on.
Yep.
If it's on, we then go into what are we having to do? My first priority is, do I need to shut down due to overheating?
Yeah.
If so, do it.
Yep.
Same thing with the coolant. Is the coolant empty?
Yep.
If it's empty, then do what I do when the coolant is empty.
Yeah.
If the power is full, then I'm turning it off and I'm sleeping for 10 minutes.
Yep.
And so that and because 10 minutes is such a long time, I'm actually printing out how far along we are in that 10 minutes wait.
Right.
All right. And if none of those extra circumstances are true, then and only then will I ensure that the reactor is on.
Right.
And at the very, very end, and this is true whether the reactor is enabled or disabled.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping for 10 seconds.
Right.
So this means at most, if you flip that switch, the most you will have to wait before the reactor is turned on or turned off is about 9.5 seconds.
That's always good then.
All right. And that's pretty much it for that.
Right.
And all of this means, if I restart this, oops. If I start this up,
Yeah.
first of all, you're going to hear a few explosions in the back when it actually turns on. Don't worry about that. That's just the
Reactor.
no, it's just the turbines turning on. This whole thing will run very, very smoothly. To the point where we won't hear those explosions again until
It explodes.
Until it shuts off for some reason. Whether it be because the MFSU up here is empty, or
Right.
full, I mean, or we switch off the reactor, or it overheats, which this reactor, this build, has not overheated once, other than construction and proof of concept phases.
Yeah.
But since I've added this circuit up here, which measures how much coolant I have in the tank, that reactor has not overheated once.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. There's one last piece to this puzzle, and that is how am I transferring the power everywhere.
Yep.
If you come over here, you'll see 2 ender chests.
Yep.
The first one is filled with Labotron crystals that are empty.
Yep.
Those are then being pumped into the MFSU so that they can charge. And once they're charged, they're being pushed into this other ender chest.
Right, yeah.
And then I can use those Labotron crystals in any MFSU anywhere I need it, regardless of how far it is away from the reactor.
That's ideal, isn't it?
It's ideal also because of a couple of reasons. One, I'm not exactly happy with the idea of laying cable all over the map.
Yeah.
I'm worried about performance, so the Minecraft server performance. Plus, these things are expensive as hell. And you lose power for the distance you're sending it.
Yeah.
So using this system of charging a Labotron crystal and sending it wherever I need it saves power and is just efficient and is best for the server.
And it's good exercise for yourself as well.
I don't know about that. But that is pretty much the reactor. I'm running right now with 600 EU per tick.
That's not bad.
And I could increase this if I wanted to, because if you look up here, you'll see that we're not using the hot coolant as fast as we're creating it.
Yeah.
So this isn't even up to full efficiency yet. I could potentially add maybe half a tower. I could also probably add maybe 1 or 2 kinetic generators that are not hooked up to these. Not the super method that's going on over here, but
yeah,
I could play around with this more to get it so that we're using the hot coolant faster. But to be totally honest, this is fast enough for what we're doing.
Oh.
So, and I could also probably add a second reactor. Like I could redo the reactor in the basement, and I could probably make it so that they're sharing these tanks. The only difference then is that these this redstone signal here that's being sent by the structure pipe.
Yeah.
That would have to be another RF tools redstone transmission channel, so that it can be shared by both controlling computers.
Yeah, I'm just showing them that the computer is actually saying coolant tank below 25%, shutting down reactor.
Yep. Do you have any questions?
Not really.
Okay.
Because I think I was going to ask about the explosion damage and that sort of thing, but we sort of covered that with the first one.
We did, yeah. There's one other circuit that I could potentially add. I'm not going to, but I could potentially do it. I told you that these machines down here, the condenser and the fluid regulators, that they all require power. Yeah. I could potentially add a circuit to this MFE to ensure that we always have power here, otherwise we don't enable the reaction.
Right.
But I find that a little overkill.
Yeah. Plus there's only so much room you got in here for more piping, isn't there?
Well, I don't know if I need to do more piping. I just have to send out a redstone signal to the bottom level of the computer here. But I just find that a little silly. We aren't going to run out of the turbines, so there's no real good reason in this setup, in this world, to worry about this thing ever emptying.
That's good then.
I think
that covers everything, doesn't it? Really?
that pretty much covers everything. I could go over how I'm running the power, but I think that that's all been covered. You know, the way the transformers work and everything, that's all pretty much been covered by other people. And yes, this is an old version of IC2.
Yeah, it's for Minecraft 1.7.10, I think.
Yes.
So it is quite a
It's
few
just that for
versions.
1.7.10, I found very little online about this setup and how to do it properly. I didn't find any sort of good way to calculate how much coolant that reactor can put out, so that I could then calculate how many steam generators I can have, for example. That sort of calculation, it just seemed, it's very trial and error.
Yeah.
And the balancing was hard, which is why I felt that this is the best system.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll cover it all, because it's quite a long video.
Yeah.
Don't wanna...
I think that covers it.
So, make sure to subscribe, leave a like. If you have any questions, just post it in the comments, and
if you want to have the code, it's going to be in the description.
Yeah.
And if you have questions on the code, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll try to walk you through it, but it's all pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
At least from a programmer's point of view.
Yeah.
So you can't take my point of view.
No, he does it for a living normally. So
yeah.
So this has been me, Draco, and DarthHeap over there. Hope you enjoy the video, and as I said, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, family, dogs, cats, everyone.
And if you have any requests for code or special designs, let us know.
Okay then. See you later, guys.
Bye.